Let's take some calls from people in the audience. We do this via Discord at davidpakman.com/Discord. As a reminder, if you are in the Discord waiting to talk to me, your nickname should be your name and where you're calling from. Anything else, including name only or nicknames or usernames, you are unfortunately going to get skipped over. The requirement for the format is name and where you're calling from in some order. In some order. Like, for example, Jay from New Jersey. Let's go first to Jay from New Jersey. Jay, welcome.
Hey, David.
How are you?
My question is,
Yes.
how do you justify eating meat, dairy, and eggs?
Who do I have to justify it to?
Well, when there's a victim involved, wouldn't you have to justify it to them?
I don't know. Is that if you perceive that there are victims, every victim gets an explanation? I don't even know what you're saying.
Well, yeah. So like if you or someone decides to eat meat, dairy, and eggs,
Yeah.
and if animals are dying for that decision
Yeah.
that's being made over and over again, do you feel like you could justify making that decision be, to that victim who has to suffer and die for it?
Like, for example, when I have my cappuccino, could I go to a cow and say, tell the cow why I'm drinking their milk, for example?
Yeah, like that cow who had to endure multiple pregnancies and then be separated from their child. And then, of course, if the child is a male, the males in the dairy industry almost always, well, they always get separated on the first day of life.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes they're killed on the first or second day of life. And this process will happen over and over again to the mother cows, like several times until they can no longer produce milk any longer. And then they'll ultimately get sent to the slaughterhouse. So yeah, like in scenario that you're painting, like with the cappuccino, do you think that there is a moral justification for consuming animal products if it's not a necessity, if we could just be using plant-based alternatives instead?
So the problem I have with this entire framing is that it's so absolutist and narrow, and it's not really like the way the world actually works. So, for example, sometimes you follow these things to their logical conclusion. Like, I've read a lot about this, and hopefully you'll indulge me for a moment. If we say, okay, eliminate all animal products whatsoever, great. So that now puts an incredible strain on a handful of crops, which now need to be grown in dramatically larger quantities in order to replace all of those animal products. This creates absolutely massive monoculture farms, which are absolutely terrible for the environment. Many of these monocultures require absolutely bonkers amounts of water in order to generate equivalent amounts of, for example, protein. The water use also leads to many animals dying, everything from mice to, all sorts of other things. And so we can do the entire thing that I gather is what you would consider to be morally right, and then we would still end up killing so many animals by virtue of how we restructure and reorganize what humans eat. Are we really better off by killing different animals through drought and monoculture, et cetera? I mean, I don't know. You tell me.
So
How do
I
you
would
justify it to them?
I would be interested in responding to that counterpoint that you brought up, but you did kind of not answer the question I asked, David.
The answer to my question is I don't know what I would tell a cow. I've never spoken to a cow. So I don't know. But what I'm telling you is it's the type of question that's really just a black hole. It doesn't really go anywhere in terms of answering the broader questions about how would we feed the planet on 5 monoculture crops that would have to be exploded, 1,000,000% in order to replace all the animal products. You're not answering that question to me, which is okay too.
Okay,
What
well,
I'm telling
I
you is
could
your
answer it.
framing is arbitrarily narrow and sort of myopic.
Well, I can respond to that counterpoint that you bring up,
Okay.
but I do want to say that, you know, about the meat, dairy, and egg industry, like it is like terribly, terribly cruel, the standard practices of meat, dairy, and eggs. So
Yeah,
I
I don't,
don't,
I'm with you right there.
that's
I'm with you right there. The
okay.
standard practices are horrible. What I do is,
Okay, great.
I eat very little red meat, for example. And when I do, I try to know exactly what farm is it coming from, where I could drive and see what are the conditions. I think that, like, for example, I'm on pasture free stuff where I know exactly where it's coming. I'm doing certain things for myself, but I agree with you. The standard practices are terrible. You and I are on the same page.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and then just to touch on like the resource intensive subject that you brought up.
Yeah.
So actually, when you really look into the amount of resources required that it takes to produce, like raise livestock and breed these animals and then raise them to slaughter weight for meat and then also for dairy and eggs, when you look at how much water and crops and resources are needed for all these different kind of animal products,
Yes.
it is just like unbelievably intensive on the environment and
You're
just
absolutely right.
weight
You're
and volume of
absolutely
these
right.
crops. Like if you've ever seen Cowspiracy, like they that's a documentary free on
Yeah, I'm
Netflix or
familiar with
YouTube.
it.
Like they
Cowspiracy,
go into
I
all that
saw
stuff.
it, and
So I
Cowspiracy is
just
fine, but it's
I
also
just want to
lacking a
respond.
lot of context and information. What you also have to consider is, if we replace all of those products, what are they replaced with to meet certain caloric needs? It ends up being a very small number of things that can do it, which generates monocultures. That's very bad for the environment in
Well,
new and other ways.
it's all,
Jay, I got to run. I've given you almost 10
wait, David.
minutes. I know we're
I just
not going to agree,
one more for
okay?
you. Just one more. I just want to say like okay about the amount of crops. Like it's always less crops to eat a plant-based diet. That's first of all. So if you want to talk about crop deaths, there'll always be less crop-related deaths on a plant-based diet. But you still haven't answered the questions. How do you justify eating meat, dairy, and eggs when there is a victim involved? And you said that
I'd have to
you have
think
never
about how I
spoken to a
talk to
cow.
the cow, Jay. I told you, I think that those
Well, talk to
questions are
me because I want to
philosophical
talk
black
on the
holes.
cow's behalf. The cows are dying for
All
the
right, then.
decision to put the
Jay,
milk in your
I've given
coffee.
you
So I
more
just want
time
to
than I
know
give anybody. I got to let you
how do
go,
you.
okay?
All right, well, think about it, David.
All
Thanks
right,
for
I'll think
taking my.
about that. Thank you. Boy, see, this is why when I saw the user was Jay Vegan, I almost got away from it. But I do regret that. I do regret that. As many of you know, I'm a busy person. I don't always have the exact correct nutritional plan for my meals every single day. And that's why I also take a multivitamin and a couple of supplements. But doing them all separately can be a little bit time consuming, which is why Athletic Greens is just fantastic. And they're one of our sponsors. I've been using the Athletic Greens since last year. It just really simplifies nutrition. I just do a scoop of the AG1 and I'm getting 75 high quality vitamins and minerals and my probiotics, and it's all from whole food sources. I drink it in the morning. I know I'm good. I don't have to be messing around with different pills and supplements or whatever, or spend time planning what time of day do I need to take each one. I just get it all with one scoop. You can put it in a smoothie. You can drink it straight. It tastes great. And then I'm just good for the day. It supports gut health, and I'm getting everything that I need and I'm looking for. Athletic Greens is giving my audience a free 1 year supply of vitamin D plus 5 free travel packs when you go to athleticgreens.com/Pakman, and the link is down below.